a developing situation that, on the surface, appears to be a series of disconnected, tragic, and chaotic news events. But when you apply a systems analysis framework, a disturbing pattern begins to emerge. We're calling it the February Cascade. Let's lay out the core event. Within a 72-hour window at the end of January and beginning of February 2026.
That's right, Sarah. The purpose of a system is what it does. And what we're seeing is a system that is systematically removing key operational personnel from a major broadcast network, NBC, just days before it undertakes the most complex broadcast operation in its history, the simultaneous coverage of the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy and Super Bowl 60 in California. And these aren't just faces.
3 key media figures were taken off the board. First, Don Lemon, a major journalist, was arrested by the FBI while covering anti-ICE protests. Second, the wife and unborn child of Matt Graham, a senior director of digital strategy for NBC Sports, were killed in a tragic car crash. And third, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, the scheduled host of the Olympics opening ceremony, was kidnapped.
These are, as you put it, infrastructure people. Savannah, but she's also a seasoned journalist with a history of confronting power. Her removal creates a vacuum at the top. But Matt Graham is arguably the more critical piece. This is a man whose entire career, according to his own university biography, has been about training NBC newsrooms for the future.
The reporting on Graham has been conspicuously thin. While his wife's career at Google is detailed extensively, he is simply referred to as a former employee of NBC Universal. That's not journalism, that's editorial suppression. Someone made a decision to obscure his role, which only highlights its significance. He's the man who knows how to cover politically sensitive events, and he's been taken out of the equation. And Peacock, NBC's streaming service, is at the heart of this.
And who has direct experience covering multiple Olympic Games. He's the institutional knowledge. His removal, through trauma, is a strategic blow to NBC's operational capacity. This is all happening against a backdrop of a massive, industry-wide dismantling of legacy media. In 2025 alone, we saw over 17,000 media layoffs, with major cuts at Paramount, Disney, CBS, and NBC itself.
It's been losing hundreds of millions of dollars, and the Olympics and the Super Bowl are its primary justification for existence, its main subscriber drivers. The company is explicitly positioning for a future where traditional television doesn't exist. This legendary February, as they're calling it, is the pivot point. It's the moment they have to prove the old model is obsolete, which leads to layer 3.
The narrative being pushed is that this is a dying industry, that AI is the inevitable replacement. What we're actually seeing is the deliberate transition from a distributed, licensed, and legally protected broadcast model to a centralized, controlled streaming model. So let's map the cascade model. Layer 1. You remove the broadcast infrastructure people.
The potential trigger event. The Super Bowl is in California, a hotbed of anti-ICE sentiment. The halftime performer Bad Bunny is vocally anti-ICE. Protests are expected. The administration has been making contradictory statements about ICE's presence, with DHS refusing to disclose their operational plan. You have a volatile situation, and the experienced media personnel who would normally navigate it are gone.
The experienced host, the operational trainer, the investigative journalist. You supplement this with mass layoffs that create fear and erode institutional knowledge. Layer 2, you create a coverage gap. The most geographically complex Winter Olympics in history, a new engineering lead at NBC, and the lead commentator, Mike Tirico, being stretched impossibly thin flying between Italy and California.
This isn't about stopping the games, it's about using the games to demonstrate that the old infrastructure is no longer capable of managing a crisis, thereby justifying the transition to the new, more controllable streaming and AI-driven model. They're creating the problem to sell the solution. The kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie is the most brutal and direct part of this. The ransom deadline is tomorrow. The family has stated they will pay, but there's been no direct contact.
The system is under maximum stress. And if something goes wrong, a security incident, a coverage failure, anything, you get to layer 4. The understaffed, confused newsrooms can't provide clarity. The official narrative, provided by the state, becomes the only narrative. And the incident becomes the pretext for emergency measures. More laws, more surveillance, more executive power.
Investigators are now searching the septic tank at her home. It's a maximum pressure campaign, not just on the Guthrie family, but on the entire institution of NBC. It sends a message. We can touch anyone. And when the people who are supposed to report on it are the primary targets, it's a self-neutralizing threat. We're watching a controlled demolition of the Fourth Estate, and the rubble is being used to build a fortress for the state.
The crisis creates the mandate. It's the classic playbook, and the AI element is already deployed. NBC used an AI-powered recreation of Al Michaels' voice during the Paris 2024 Olympics for customized recap. They're openly testing the technology that will replace the human journalists they are currently laying off. The end state is a media landscape with no sources to protect.
The next 48 hours with the Super Bowl and the ransom deadline will be critical. And the streaming model that's replacing it is the polar opposite. It's centralized on these platform you at will. Their algorithms can be manipulated to promote or suppress content. They are surveillance-friendly by design. And most importantly, their relationship with the user is governed by a terms of service agreement, not the First Amendment.
No investigations to conduct, and a fully controllable narrative delivered by an algorithm. The purpose of the system is what it does. And this system is systematically dismantling the infrastructure of broadcast journalism and replacing it with a centralized, controllable content delivery mechanism, all while using a series of manufactured or exploited crises as the catalyst.
Your constitutional protections are gone. And the timing of this cascade is what makes it so suspect. The three key figures are removed in a 72-hour window right before the two broadcast events that, as you said, justify the very existence of the legacy infrastructure. It's too precise to be a coincidence. It feels like a planned demolition where the charges are set weeks in advance and then detonated in a controlled sequence. It's a perfect storm.
The question isn't whether it's a conspiracy. The question is architecture in motion. When you can see the cascade building, let's go deeper on the media transition, because it's not just about layoff. It's about a fundamental shift in the technological and legal framework of news. The old broadcast model, for all its flaws, had certain built-in protections.
And the outcome, regardless of what happens at the Super Bowl, is the same. A further erosion of trust in the legacy media and a further justification for the transition to the new controlled model. If there's a security incident, the narrative will be that the old guard couldn't handle it. If the coverage is chaotic and confused, the narrative will be that the old infrastructure is failing. It's a win-win for those who want to see it burn.
FCC licensing, for instance, created a barrier to entry and a set of public interest obligations. There were traditions of source protection, of editorial independence. The infrastructure itself, studios, broadcast towers, satellite trucks, was distributed. The 55,000 AI-driven layoffs across all industries in 2025 are the canary in the coal mine. This isn't just about cost saving. It's about removing the human element, the potential for dissent, from the information pipeline. An AI doesn't have sources to protect. It doesn't have a conscience. It doesn't leak documents. It does what it's told. It delivers the narrative it's given, perfectly and at scale. The Super Bowl itself becomes a flashpoint. You have the governor of California declaring it Bad Bunny Day in a direct troll of the president. You have the Ice Out rally towel. You have a history of eyewitness videos in Minnesota contradicting the official narratives about ICE violence. The stage is set for a confrontation, and the people who would normally be there to provide independent coverage, to ask the hard questions, are either silenced, traumatized, or dealing with a family crisis. And that's the key insight from the Posuit analysis. The purpose of this system is not to inform. It's not to entertain. It is to convert a distributed, legally protected, and potentially adversarial broadcast journalism industry into a centralized, platform-dependent, and algorithmically controlled content delivery system. It's a hostile takeover of the information space, and the February Cascade is the opening salvo.